The 5.0 Summoner is one of the most controversial jobs in Final Fantasy XIV, with most of its players saying the job is too busy, and some going as far as to say it is unmanageable. While I agree that the job is busy, I'd like to give you my reasons why I absolutely love the Summoner job in its current state, and give you guys some tricks I've been doing to help make your rotation feel both engaging and manageable. The Summoner is a pet caster job that uses pet spells to add to its own damage. Starting out in a small personal Dreadworm trance phase, our opener is fast but calculated in order to build up to a proper Bahamut. While in Bahamut, we slow down a little bit, focusing on getting 2 Ockmorns plus as many worm waves in as possible. After Bahamut, we go into a management phase where we do our best to keep our dots up and focus on keeping our pet spells and Aetherflow stacks from overcapping. Our second last phase is our Phoenix, where our rotation changes, alternating between 2 spells and using Revelation twice during. Our last phase is another cooldown and management phase, where we prep to go back into our Dreadworm trance by maintaining dots and using mostly Rune 3 to do our damage. Looking at the phases, Summoner doesn't have a set rotation to go into, but rather a cycle, each requiring preparation and attention to rotation changes. To me, Summoner feels like an interesting and well-composed song. A strong build-up into a successful peak, a slow intermission building to a final jubilant and glorious peak with Phoenix, and then finally a slow and winding finish to let you know where the song is ending. When played correctly, the Summoner is very fluid and rewarding, and I'd love for more people to realize all the intricate quirks Summoner has. Okay, let's get into it then. Our opener is our Dreadworm trance phase, and it gives us instant casts on our abilities. Since our opener is a build-up to Bahamut, we need to accomplish a lot in a very short window of time so that while our pet is dismissed and replaced with Bahamut, we don't end up overcapping on resources. Our biggest spells to manage are going to be our Eggy Assault 1 and Eggy Assault 2, which grants us further Ruin, changing your Ruin 2 into Ruin 4, and increasing its potency up to 200. Another big spell you will need to get off as soon as possible is Devotion. The faster you get it off in your Dreadworm trance, the better it will line up with your second Phoenix phase. Knowing all this, let me walk you through it. For bosses, you should pre-cast a Ruin 3 seconds before the start time, and then cast a Ruin 2 immediately after. This will give you approximately 2 seconds to get your Tri-Disaster off first, followed by Dreadworm Trance. The order here is very important because we need the refreshed Tri-Disaster in Bahamut. Always make sure to line up your Tri-Disaster and your Dreadworm Trance when you're redoing your opener. Now that we're in Dreadworm Trance, you'll be casting Ruin 3 and double weaving the rest of your spells. The order I pair mine are Devotion and Energy Drain, Eggy Assault 1 and Eggy Assault 2, and then another round of Eggy Assault 1 and Eggy Assault 2, Fester, then Enkindle, and then finally to end your Dreadworm Trance phase, you will double weave the Death Flare and summon Bahamut into your last instant cast, leaving 0 downtime. At the end of your Dreadworm Trance phase, you should be left with a Tri-Disaster ready, one stack of Aetherflow, and both Eggy Assault charges at 0. Now that we've entered Bahamut, our rotation slows down a tad. We're still using Ruin 3, but because we don't have instant cast, we will need to use a Ruin 4 to buy us weaving time. Immediately after leaving Dreadworm Trance and entering Bahamut, we start casting a Ruin 3, followed by a Ruin 4. In the window bought to us by Ruin 4, we get our first Worm Wave off, and our last Aetherflow stack. After this, it will be chaining Ruin 3 casts until Ockmorn comes up again. Again, we'll use Ruin 4 to buy us weaving time, where we'll use our Tri-Disaster that we saved from our opener, and our last Ockmorn. Going into our maintenance time, we need to ensure we're not overcapping on resources. Use the same method of using Ruin 4 or Ruin 2 to double weave our Eggy Assaults and Aetherflow stuff. We need to do our best here to ensure that nothing will overcap once we enter Phoenix. The Tri-Disaster you casted in Bahamut should line up fairly well with the start of Phoenix phase. It's very important here to hardcast dots before Phoenix and save the refreshed Tri-Disaster for when it will be more useful. Your hardcasting dots will line up pretty closely with the start of Phoenix, and in the best scenario, you'll be able to weave your Phoenix at the end of your bio. Otherwise, I usually swift cast a Ruin 3 and then enter Phoenix immediately after. While in Phoenix, our rotation changes slightly, where we need to alternate 2 spells that replace your Ruin 3 and Outburst. During our 2-button rotation, our Energy Drain will come off cooldown, and we'll also need to cast 2 Revelations inside the Phoenix window. This is very manageable because of the instant cast. Now here comes the most important part of Phoenix. use the Try Disaster at 11 seconds remaining on your Phoenix. This is incredibly important in order to not delay your next Dreadworm Trance phase. You will lose 10 seconds of Ruination, but I found this is still the most optimal ways to use Try Disaster for the Ruination buffs. Lastly, we go into a slow cooldown period where we can let our Eggy Assault charges build up if we want, because we'll be going into another opener phase, or you can use them here. You will also need to hardcast dots about halfway through this phase, but other than that, there's not much else going on. Remember though, at the start of your next opener phase, you need to cast Try Disaster first and then Dreadworm Trance, in order to save you from having to hardcast dots in Bahamut. I do think the Summoner is a busy job, but I love the way it flows and builds. You have a lot to manage, but everything fits into its own place and works well together. In a recent live letter, the devs hinted to a focus on making Summoner less busy, and that scared me a little, because without how busy this job is, you could lose a lot of the intricacies of how all your dot timings, Eggy Assaults, and Aetherflow abilities work together to create a deep and engaging cycle. That's not to say I don't think there could be changes and not take away from the job too much. My personal recommendation would be to consolidate both Eggy Assaults into one, and have each use grant 2 further Ruin stacks, and also have Devotion not be tied to our pet, so that our Phoenix doesn't end up eating them as they line up very closely. Honestly, I really hope this helped any of you guys that were interested in Summoner but couldn't quite figure out how it was all meant to flow together. I absolutely adore the 5.0 Summoner, and I think once more people start feeling the overall cycle, it'll be far more fun and manageable.